Hey everyone, how's it going? So what am I working on now? Yeah, I got a 98 Toyota Tacoma that got towed into me for a no start. Looks like it's been sitting for a while, so I don't think I got a full story on this. We got it in the shop. Let's take a look. Here's right here, and it's definitely been sitting a while. It's dirty. I mean, it's very dirty, as you can see by the buildup of stuff on this truck. But it's clean. I mean, it's actually not rotted, from what I could tell. But let's see what we got in here. Hang on a second. And so here we are. Stick shift. Turn the key on. I got absolutely nothing. Supposedly the battery was changed. And still had absolutely nothing. Okay, well, I'm just going off of the fact that it has absolutely nothing, and let's go underneath the hood. So there's our battery, which does look new. So what I'm going to do is let me just test the battery real quick. Here's that King Bolin battery tester that I got. Like I said, this thing was very, very inexpensive, and it worked very well. And it worked comparable to my older Chrysler one that I had. So let's see, battery type, 12 volt. Okay, cold cranking amp, 750. So it's doing its thing. 793, it's a good battery. Okay, so why do we have nothing on the inside? Well, did somebody try jump starting this and jump start it backwards? And then blow a main fuse? That's always a possibility. I've seen that a million times. That's interesting. What the heck is that thing? Let me see if I can't figure out what in the world that's all about. So that disaster there is actually the alternator 80 amp fuse. So if we come down here, we see we have power right there. Now on the other side, we have nothing. Okay, so let's try. Oh, you hear that? When I'm jumping it across, you can actually hear something turning on. So obviously that's no good, and somebody tried to get it out and was unsuccessful. So let's try to get that out of there. So now really all I'm going to try to do is just dig this thing out of here and see if I can't find an 80 amp fuse to replace it. Because this thing is just obviously all busted up. It feels like it might be corroded in there. Man, because tell you what, I am putting some pressure on that and it's just not coming out. Bits and pieces are coming out. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to disconnect the battery so I don't have to worry about that. Hang on a second. So I wound up deleting a section of this video because I realized I had my arm in the way the whole time, in the way of the camera. I didn't even realize it while I was filming it. But what I wound up doing was I was disconnecting the battery and I was lifting up the fuse box to gain access to the bolts that held the fuse in place, because the fuse basically slid down and had bolts coming in from either side. So you get to see me from that point of taking a fuse box up and then accessing the bolts. So I wound up deleting that piece because you don't need to see this during the entire video. So I got the mounting bolts out. There's one up here and there's two down there. And as you see, there's a tab here, and you pry out on the tab to try to separate it. So there again, I'm going to have to probably turn my light on to try to see what I'm doing here. So what I want to do is I want to be able to lift this thing up as much as possible to work on it. And let's see, will it be helpful? Probably not. Okay. Now all I'm doing is I'm prying out these little tabs to try to get the bottom to release from the top. And a lot of times these things are, the plastic gets so brittle over time that it breaks in the process, which is not a big deal because it'll sandwich back together. But there's a window here, I don't know if you can see it, and that window I need to access because that'll get to the back side of that. At least I think I'm doing this the right way. Can't always be certain. Sometimes it's trial and error. It looks like it's separating. This thing used to have a tie wrap on it years ago. That fell apart. There we go. It looks like it's separated. And yes, so now, oh, this side's an 8mm. Look at that. Okay, I don't know if you guys can see that in there. Yeah, you can. Okay, so that's an 8mm. The other side's a 10, this side's an 8. So let me get an 8 so I can get that in there. And then I got to try to locate the fuse. I've hit my head twice now on this hood, right in the corner of the hood. And that don't feel good. Now, I can pretty much guarantee you the reason this fuse blew is because somebody jump started it backwards. I have never seen one of these fuses blow from a bad alternator or anything else. Okay, so that explains it. That makes sense. So now let me see if I can find a fuse to put in there and get some compressed air and just blow that junk out of there, and then this way I can hook everything back up. So none of my part stores had an 80 amper, so I had to use this 100 amp little fuse, and this should work out fine. So let's get this in place and let's get the bolts in place. Let me try using a different light source. See if that'll help the situation. Oh, I didn't blow it out. Let me blow it out first. Hang on a second. Obviously, if you don't have compressed air, you just do whatever you can to get out the debris. If you run into this situation, it's kind of a unique situation. Oops. Oh well, stay over there. All right, so let's stick that down in place. And I should be able to catch the screw. Because it's got to go through this wire here too. So let's see. On this side, make sure, yeah, okay. On this side, it actually, I don't know if you could see it, but it actually sandwiches between a tin plate. I don't want to tighten it up with the little gun. Let me get a hand ratchet. I like to be able to feel it. Because something like this would be really easy to over tighten. And then on this side, you know, you're not going to be able to see what I'm doing, but on this side, it just goes in, and there's no wire that it has to loop through. And this side's a 10mm. using a 100 amp, it'll be fine. It's not going to hurt nothing. Alright, so this fuse box, make sure you snap it all back down together so everything is back to the way it's supposed to be. And then, I don't know what this wire was for, probably a radio or something. We want to make sure that we're not pinching anything. This, we could send these screws home. I'm not that critical on the torque, or the torque is not that critical, I should say, for this housing, because it's just mounting it. Obviously, you don't want to go bananas tightening it. On the wire back over where it's supposed to be. We'll hook the ground back up here that I took off. Now let's hook the battery up, and it shouldn't blow the fuse, I would think. Only one way to find out. Just put my tools over here. Nah, didn't pop the fuse. Kind of what I thought. I'm pretty confident somebody tried to jump start this thing and they jump started it backwards. Because if you look, can you actually see what I'm doing? Yeah. If you look real close, that's positive, that's negative. The wiring's black. So, very easy to mistake and do it incorrectly. Alright, let me just get this stuff out from under the hood. Alright, now she should start. Hook this back up to where it was. I do not know what the point of this is, but going back. Somebody took the fuse panel off there. Oh, I wonder if that's for a fuel pump. Yeah, cranks. But now we got a no start. So why do we got a no start? Okay, we're gonna have to diagnose that now too. So I just happened to check under the hood. I found this blown fuse here. It corresponds with EFI. And it goes right here. So, is it possible they popped the fuse, that fuse when they crossed the battery? Let's find out. Yep, there you go. Now I'm going to put this thing up in the air real quick. There's one thing I found in the past on Toyotas like this one. Why is it getting dark? On Toyotas like this one, is when that EFI fuse is blown, sometimes the wiring for the O2 sensor has ground out against the exhaust system, has burned through, and that'll do the same thing. So let me put this up in the air real quick and take a look. Here's the upstream O2, and like I said, this is the one that I've seen where the wiring comes disconnected from here, and I've actually seen it rub on the exhaust and burn through, and that's what causes that fuse to blow. So I'm confident that's not it. And here's a downstream one too, just so you see, and that all looks good. So I am confident that somebody just jump started this thing backwards, and that's what created this whole entire problem. Yeah, so I'm confident that we're good from here. So, all right, hopefully you got something out of that. If you did, hit that like button. If you could, please subscribe. All right, guys, have a great day. Keep wrenching.